A very good morning to all. Myself, Kavitavijay, and today we are going to discuss topic factoring. What is factoring? Factoring is basically a financial service, or we can say factoring is a method of financing where the firm sells its trade debts to the financial institutions at a discount, or we can say it is an arrangement or a agreement between a financial institutions and a firm which sells its goods and services on a credit terms. Basically, Factor is a company which provides the finance to the company, which sells its goods and services to the customers on credit. So that is called as the Factor company. What happens in the factoring? The factor company purchase the trade debts of the firm, including the accounts receivables also, and exercise the control over the credit sales and also administer the sales ledger of the client. So basically what we can say, factoring is an arrangement in which receivables on account of sale of goods or services are sold to the factor at a certain discount. It is also treated as a short-term source of finance. Now, the next is functions of the factor. What functions that is associated with the factor company? The first one is collection of receivables. A factor company collects all the receivables on the behalf of client so that it helps the client, its client or the firm. It relieves the firm from the problem of all the work which is involved in the collection of dues or collection of receivables so that the company can focus on its production. And somewhere debtors also becomes responsive because the factor is a credit institutions. The next function is a sales ledger management. When there is a agreement established between the factor company and the seller company, there becomes a factor sales ledger where the factor company credits the customer's account whenever it receives the payments from the customer. Even though factor company also provides the information to the customer about their due balance or their due date regarding the payment. The next function is financing of trade debt. This is a very important function of factoring where the factor company provides the finance to the seller company. Factor company purchases all the trade debts of the seller company and provides a advance amount to the trade debts. That depends on the quality of the customer also. The last is credit investigation and undertaking of credit, as the factor company provides the finance in advance to the their customers or their clients. So the factor company also monitor the credit worthiness of the customer also, because there is a risk also associated of bad debts. So that's why it also investigate the credit worthiness of the customer also. Now let's discuss what are the parties that is involved in the factoring contract. There are three parties which involves in the factoring contract. The first one is the customer who has purchased the goods from the firm or the company, and the seller of goods who has supplied goods or provide services at credit terms to its customer, and factor who purchased the trade debts from the seller company who sells the goods and services to their customers on the credit terms. Now let's discuss, there are various types of factoring. The first factoring is notified factoring. Notified factoring as specific, it is also, we can understand by the name also, where the customer is intimated. Who is the customer? Customer is the buyer of goods and services, the person or the company who is buying the goods and services on the credit terms to the seller company. So the notified factoring, where the customer is intimated that there is an arrangement of factor, there is an arrangement or there is an assignment of debt to the factor company, and the customer has to pay their bills to the factor company. Second is non-notified factoring. Non-notified factoring, or we can say it is a confidential factoring also, where the customer is not intimated about the agreement of factor company and the selling company. It is because of the risk also, risk of a non-payment also. That's why the seller company and the factor company does not intimate to the customer about their agreement. Next is recourse and non-recourse factoring. Recourse factoring, where the risk is associated with the client only, and non-recourse factoring, where the risk is associated with the factor company. Recourse and non-recourse factoring, basically in recourse factoring, if the customer fails to pay the amount which he has, then factor company has a right to sell back to that receivables to the to their client only or to the selling company, and that risk will be and that bad debts risk will be associated with the company only. In non-recourse factoring, if the company has sold all the receivables to the factor company, now the risk of bad debts will associated with the factoring company only. If the customer fails to pay the amount of bill, then uh, the client or the selling company will not bear or that the risk of bad debts. The factoring company only that is going to bear the risk of bad debts. Credit factoring. In credit factoring, basically what happens, the factor company purchase all the invoices, all the bills receivables with recourse to the from the seller and provide the finance only, but other work, and also there is an interest also charged. What we can say, the interest is charged until the factor company does not receive all the payments from the buyer. And other work like sales administration, collection, and other work will be done by the client himself. Maturity factoring, there is no financing involved. Only the administrative work like the managing of ledger, collection, these work will be included in the maturity factoring. No finance will be available in the maturity factoring. Bulk factoring is almost same to the credit factoring or the invoice factoring, we can say. Only the difference between the invoice factoring and bulk factoring is that it is in bulk factoring, before providing the financing, it is intimated to the customer that the customer has to pay to the factor company only. There is a agreement between the factor company and the seller company, and the customer will pay the amount to the factor company only. Then only factor company will provide the finance to the client. So these all there are various types of factoring. Now let's discuss the advantages of factoring. It reduced the application time because when we go for a bank borrowings, there are a lot of formalities which the one has to be fulfilled. So these are the application time in factoring is less than the bank borrowings. It's almost less than 2 weeks only, what we can say. Next is working capital optimizations, because in this factoring, the factor company provide the finance to the client. So the client have a working capital, or it will free from the other problem of bad debts and other problem of receivables or a collection of dues. So company will have company will it will accelerate the cash flow of the company, and that will that will optimize the working capital, or that will manage the working capital needs also. Next is credit protection against bad debts, debtor insolvency and losses. Obviously, in fewer, like we have discussed, without recourse factoring, where the risk is associated with the factoring company only. So it will gives the protection to the client or the customer. It will give the credit protection to the client against the bad debts and the losses, which is due to the insolvency of debtors. It also enhance the credit rating, because when there will be it will accelerate the cash flow. The company will pay all their dues in time, so it will increase their credit rating. And next is credit and receivable management. Few of the factoring which we have discussed, the factor company manages all the or control all the credit sales of the company. Improve liquidity also, because it will accelerate the cash flow. Company will have the cash at the time, so company can go for company can focus on the other work also. It will improve the liquidity of the company, improve the position of liquidity in the company. Cash flow optimization and better forecasting, because factor company will provide the cash in advance, that will accelerate the cash flow, and because of that, the company can forecast for the future. Improvement in current ratio in bank. When we talk about the bank borrowing, it will increase the liability for the company, but as using the factoring, it will reduce the bank borrowings, so it will increase the current ratio. More time to focus on core business operations, because the company will relieve from the problem of collection of debts, will have the credit protection against the bad debts, will free from the losses. So in that case, company have the option to focus on their other business operations like planning, organizing, and other things, production, purchase of raw materials. These company can focus on these type of business operations. So these are the few advantages that is because of factoring. Now let's discuss the disadvantages. Cost, because uh, it will cost, the factoring company will finance at a certain amount, will take factor company will take certain amount of discount, so it will cost to the company. Sometimes it depends on the type of factoring also. If there is a risk associated with the factoring, like in non-recourse factoring, there is a risk associated with the factoring company. In that case, factoring company charge more than the recourse factoring. Next is advance size. Advance size is depends on the quality of the customer. Because if the credit worthiness of the customer is not good, or we can say the lower quality of customers, then obviously the factor will not provide much finance, and in that case it will provide only 50 to 60%. If the customer quality is good, the credit worthiness is high, in that case the factor company can provide a higher amount in advance. So that depends, the advance size can vary. Customer quality, if the customer quality is not good, the factor company, it is not easy to find a factor company to finance. Next is invoice volume for the businesses who are running at a small scale. So in that case, the volume of invoice is small. In that case, it is again very difficult to find out a factor who can finance for that particular small amount. So these are the disadvantages of company. Now let's discuss the process or the mechanism of factoring. We can say this figure also. In that there are three parties: customer, client, and factor. What happens? First, the client company, that is a selling company. We can say the selling company sells goods and services at credit terms to the customer, and send the invoice also, where it was instructed that the customer has to pay the amount to the factoring company. It is written in the, it is intimated, or it is instructed to the customer through the invoice that they have to pay their amount to the factoring company. Then the next step is, on the basis of these invoices, the copy of these invoices is given to the factor company. The factor company checks the or the investigate the credit worthiness of the customer, and then he purchased the invoices from the seller company and pay up to 80%. This is what advance amount which factor pays to its client or the selling company, that is up to 80%. That depends on that we have discussed also, the customer quality also. That depends on the credit worthiness of the customer also. That so payment up to 80% can be given to the client by the factor company. And the balance, when customer will pay to the factor company, then the balance amount will be paid to the client by the factor company after deducting their fees, whatever they have. So this is a simple process of factoring. We can understand, we can see in this slide, the client orders goods or services on credit. Such services or goods are delivered along with the invoice. Client makes the assignment of the invoice to the factor. The basic mechanism of the factoring company, where the buyer is instructed, when the buyer purchased the goods from the seller company, the same time it was instructed through the invoice that the customer has to pay the amount to the factor company. Okay, and the seller, what the seller company do? Seller company sends all the copy of all the invoices, or sales all the invoices to the factor company, and intimate the customer also that he has to pay the amount to the factor company. Factor company purchase the trade debts from the seller company and collect also in few of the factoring, the factor company manages all the sales ledger of their clients also. The administrative work also done by the factor company in some of the factorings. So factors up to factor company up to 80% of the value of the invoices as advance to the seller. The factor provides regular statement of accounts and follow up to the customer. This is the work of factor company, which factor company basically gives the takes the follow up also and provides a periodical statement to their customers, and it credits the account of their customer or the client. It credits the amount of customer whenever they receive the amount. Customer pays the dues to the factors. Factor makes the remaining payment to the client at the time of actual collection of debt. So this is the a simple process where the factoring company deals with their clients. So this is what we have completed in the factoring. I hope you understand the topic. Thank you so much.